Yo, what's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to the R&D show. We're your host. I'm Shad.
I'm Ryan.
And this
Ashley.
is the R&D show. Yeah. All right, we're gonna jump right in, baby. We're gonna talk about some reality TV. I was talking about, So we there's been a lot going on with reality TV. Like, there's only certain shows like we watch. We don't watch all reality TV. So there's certain shows that I know for sure that we watch because it sparks great conversation. When you get to see how other friend groups and other people operate and show up in those friend groups, how people move, how they deal with conflict, how they take some information and then the way they decipher that information and decide to relay that information, and it's all twisted and wrong, but they're delivering it how they supposedly heard it. So it's just very interesting. So a lot has been going on in the world of reality TV, especially the world of like housewives, just in general. And we can start anywhere, but who should we start with? We got Salt Lake, we got Potomac.
Let's just go with Salt Lake because they had a
crazy
ending
Salt Lake City.
crazy ending to this season.
So here's the thing. I've been a fan of Salt Lake City since the pilot, I guess episode 1, season 1, I watched when it aired. And I'm like, okay, this is different. And normally I'll only watch more of my culture type of reality TV, so it would have just been Potomac and or Housewives of Atlanta. But I wanted to see, I seen that there was, Mary Cosby on there, there's a black lady, and I'm like, I want to see what this looks like. Salt Lake has a different type of, what I will say is like reality TV that's not, the black women, they have a different sense of humor. And so their shade and their sense of humor is all different, and they're likable. Salt Lake is very likable. So let's dive into like this season where you bring in a new cast member, Monica, who I have grown to really love. And of course, social media. Monica has carried season 4. She has carried every snowflake of season 4, because if it wasn't for Monica and Reality Montees, there would not be a season 4 as great as it has been.
Yeah, no, Monica's come in with a bang and made her stamp on Salt Lake.
She has, and love her or hate her, she did what needed to be done to provide us with great TV. I think the reason why a lot of us early on had a liking to Monica is because she showed up as a real housewife, not a wealthy housewife because a lot of times people associate housewife with wealthy, and that's not what that is. You got to remember how all these girls started. They lived in normal homes like Monica, like they had these normal lives and things of that nature. Certain ones, not like Beverly Hills and all the rest of that.
County, but like Real Housewives of Atlanta, certain Potomac, somewhat.
Yeah. But certain ones you think about, like, you want to see a reality of like what it looks like to not be rich and famous, to really be more, I guess, to relate more to, right? And so we see Monica navigate through, being a single mother of 4 kids and, dealing with the relationship issues with her mom, and then also dealing with trying to maneuver in a friend group of wealthy individuals and feeling like, how do I show up in this group? How do I compete, or how do I compare, or what am I doing? But we get to see, I feel like, the heart of who Monica is and what she's dealing with and how she shows up in her authentic self. And so I don't want to take that away from her, because I feel like that was needed, and it gave us a different point of view of what it looks like just to be somebody that may work a 9 to 5 and this is their life, right? Compared to this group of women who are wealthy housewives.
Yeah, I like the fact that she came in and she challenged every woman. Even when Lisa lost her ring, her $60,000 ring, which she kept saying $60,000, she said she couldn't get it. Why do you keep saying $60,000? It's a ring. Like, it seems like you're placing a lot of value on monetary things. It's not just that Lisa values a ring, it's everything Lisa has on his labels. It's all about money. And so the fact that Monica could come in and say, challenge her on that perspective and tell Lisa that you're privileged from that perspective was really cool to see.
Yeah, and a small percentage of people are as privileged as you, and we get it. So Monica, she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She wasn't afraid to say what other people wouldn't say. And she just wasn't afraid to tell about what she's done in her life. And I think that that's what sets her apart from a lot of housewives who, quote unquote, play the victim on the show, is because what they'll do is they'll trash you and the things that you're doing, but they won't show up with their trash, right? And so she wasn't afraid to open up with, yeah, I done that, I did this.
What did she do? Yeah, she done what? Like
had an affair with her brother-in-law for like 18 months, and then
and talk about the heartbreak from that, and having a scarlet letter, exile, and how difficult that was to overcome. Like, we all had some worse days, and sometimes we're not gonna put that out there for her to put that out there. Although, like, it probably was like known, but her to talk about that and how that affected her and her family,
and even her relationship, showing the relationship dynamic between her and her mom, and how it's toxic, and the work that needs to be done. And so some of those scenes were tough to watch, but it was good to see that even though you may be going through something like this, somebody's actually showing you that, hey, I'm going through it too, and this is how I'm working through it. This is how you can work through it. So she put her life on display. It wasn't just like, let me tell your business, let me tell you this. It was more so, hey, I have nothing to hide, and so you shouldn't either. But of course,
she had a little bit to hide.
There was a little bit to hide.
She didn't give them everything, but we all know that with reality TV, they brought her on the show knowing a piece of information that they did not want to come out to the end, so we can all be shocked. So maybe it was up to her. She came out like, hey, I'm this person, but like, she had that little bit she had to hold in, because there is a storyline to each particular season. And so what happened on the final?
And Monica was the storyline. The more that I go into what the formula is of reality TV, the formula is to pick the greatest plot that's going to give you a twist and turn, and you just ride that out throughout the season. Even though you're diving into different lives and you're seeing these different situations play out, there's still a focal point that everybody has to stay tuned into.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this, it was Monica and Jen and Tanisha and whoever else played into Reality Von Tease, which is an Instagram account that was used to troll the housewife ladies, but really it was supposed to be to bring down Jen Shaw, but as Monica said, the other girls were just used as collateral damage a little bit.
So it was used to troll the housewives, Salt Lake City housewives.
Yeah. And
she was just talking shit about each one of them on this.
Not by herself,
though. Not by herself. It was a group of people that collected.
But because she's on the show, she got to receive all of the energy of anger and people being upset and frustrated because you're on the show. Why are you on the show if you were a part of something that we felt like was bashing us for the last 3 years?
Yeah, so all of this came out on the very last episode.
The finale,
yeah, which you wonder who called, what's the girl's name? And told her, Heather. Who called Heather and told her about this?
So incident? Heather was talking to Tanisha.
She was talking to Tanisha.
And Tanisha was Monica's friend at one point in time and became Heather's hairstylist. But what Tanisha did not do is tell the part that she played in it, which she was a part of Reality Bounties too. So it was more than one person, which is what Monica was trying to say. But what I will say is, okay, is that the worst that has happened on reality TV on Housewives? No. Could I understand why they reacted the way they did? Yes, because they feel like somebody's trying to infiltrate their friendship circle. But they've done a lot to tear each other down too within the last 3 years, even if it wasn't on social media. Again, I don't think that this is the worst. Is it tough to trust someone who said all these things behind the scenes, I guess? But again, she was a fan.
Yeah.
And there's so many fans of shows that say harsh things. They watch just because they don't agree with everything. They may say some things that aren't the nicest. Doesn't mean that they're not a fan of the show.
I think they felt the seed because Monica befriended each one of them, and then all of a sudden they find out that she was a part of an account that trolled them.
Right.
But even on this show on Salt Lake City, these women talk about each other behind their backs all the time. So this is not anything new.
No.
I think it was just shocking that this person who was a part of this Instagram account that was trolling them found a way on the actual show and then befriended them. And then now they're finding out about that. And now they probably feel a sense of violated. I let you into the space and you were actually doing all these things. But she, again, like the count was targeted more towards Jen Shaw, who's no longer on the show anymore because she's now in jail for corruption. But I get where they're coming from, but they've done a lot of shady shit to each other over and over, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just a nice twist.
Right, it was a nice twist. It was nice theatrics. It was nice entertainment. But not only that, sometimes when you don't know people and you're basing it off of what you're watching, you develop this opinion of them, right? So again, I'm looking at it as from a different point of view of her just being a fan and her talking shit as a fan. And now I've gotten to know these women personally, filming with them and, navigating a relationship with them. And so some of them I may really, have a liking to. And I don't feel like now that she's on the show, what she felt on social media or played around with on social media is what she genuinely feels about them in person. Now that you've formed some type of relationship with them. But what I will say is I'm proud of Monica for the stance that she's taken and owning the part that she's played, because what I didn't want to see was a Monica get on the reunion and just fall apart. Can't take none of the heat. I mean, you created this heat in this kitchen, so stay in there, 10 toes down and hold your own, because you're going to have to. And I've enjoyed seeing her hold her own and just stand the test right now, because she hasn't given up. And I think that it's always great to see a villain become a victor, because I don't believe that this is the end of her story. I do feel like there's redemption. Nobody is perfect, but I think we can give her some grace, right?
Yeah, give her some grace.
Give her some grace.
I went back to, I went back to Jay Christ, what we talked about in the previous episode of comeback, and the greatest comeback of all time. But anyway, you do like to see people who have been down, and Monica was divorced. It seemed like she's been struggling financially since then. To see her to be able to get on the show and be able to make money to support her family and to be more positive on the show. I know she was negative on the Instagram account, but to be more positive is a nice change. It's a nice redemption story. So I'm looking forward to seeing next season and seeing how they come back together, because that's going to be really the storyline. Like, how do we bring Monica back in the group? How do we regain trust with Monica? And that's going to be interesting to see.
And we want to see that. Yeah. I think everybody loves a Cinderella story, right? And I feel like just not bringing her back will kind of defeat the purpose of why we've been so invested this season. We want to see Monica brought back, and we want to see those conversations and to see how these relationships can grow and start over. Because I don't think she's a bad person. I think that she made some bad decisions and maybe some bad choices, but that doesn't mean that she's a bad person.
Yeah. Perspective. I mean, we all got judged on our worst day, and that was put on TV. Then there would be, something that, that'll be challenging, because we've all done things that we've not been proud of. So we can't really judge each other on our worst day. And so I would say give Monica some grace.
Give her some grace.
And she's owned her stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing her redemption story and how she comes back from this. And hopefully it's she continues down a positive light.
Yeah, we're rooting for you, Monica. Definitely rooting for you.
Yeah.
So that's that. Let's move right along to we can go to Married to Medicine.
Okay.
Just to break it up, and we're gonna go to Married to Medicine just because there's been a lot of talk on social media again about Quad and her being voted off the island and just all the rest of this stuff. Quad has a huge fan base. I want to say that, and this fan base reminds me a little bit of Nikki's fan base, because the mental and emotional intelligence, when I read some of the stuff, seems like it's lacking in some areas. You can be a fan of somebody and still see through what they've done, right? You can be a fan of somebody, hold them accountable. You can be a fan of somebody and be like, hey, like, I get why Quad feels this way. However, I remember when Quad did this, and this, and showed up in this way. And it just seems like anything that I've read is Quad has done nothing wrong to anybody. These girls are mean girls.
Yeah, which is really interesting. Not only do you see that like with cross entertainers in terms of like music and on TV, but even like people with their sports teams, like people are 10 toes down on whoever they're supporting, and not allowing space to be critical. And I wonder why people don't allow themselves to be critical of people that they idolize or that they look up to. I wonder if it's a reflection on them. Maybe they start to think of themselves in a different way. I'm just wondering the level of attachment, because it feels like people are just not being objective in a lot of these situations and really looking at it from a discerning eye. Like, okay, Quad really has not taken any ownership for anything she's done, which is obvious. We have this whole thing when she comes out of casket and she's supposed to be redeeming herself and mending her friendships, and she doesn't take any blame for anything except instead she plays the victim.
And she was very aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive.
She was very aggressive.
I'm just wondering why people can't see that and why people can't like look at it from a more analytical point of view and hold the people that they love to a certain standard. This is really interesting to me.
And then people are saying, I don't understand why the ladies would bring her to Napa Valley just to send her home. That's not what happened. You need to rewatch the show. They literally met and had a discussion. I want Quad to come so that we can have a heart-to-heart. They wanted a result at the end of the day. They wanted to see Quad humble herself and bring herself down to ground zero and to open up and to receive what they had to say and acknowledge that and genuinely apologize for the part that she has played, and to pretty much just say, hey, like, I've done all these things and I want to show up differently. I want to, even if I got to start over with friendships with you guys, I want to show up and show you that I can be a good friend, that I am a good person, that, hey, I'm not what I've done to you. I made some mistakes. But instead, at the table, when they were trying to have these heart-to-hearts, Quad just wasn't receiving anything. Instead, it was just more so she was deflecting, she was projecting. It was everything except for accountability. And that's tough to watch when you genuinely care about, because if they didn't care about her, they would not have wasted the time of having this conversation. They could have just been eating dinner and having fun, right? But they wanted to allow some space to open up an uncomfortable conversation so that they can have comfortable relationships. And I don't think people actually analyze that this is what was happening. Instead, they just felt like, oh, she was being bullied, or they're all mean girls because they all came at her. Quad came at everybody the episode before that. Why can't they now collectively, one at a time, express their experience of her? I don't get where the difference lies.
I think it's kind of like human nature. You see 4 against 1 and you see someone at a disadvantage. And that's what it probably comes down to, is you see these girls just ganging up on this one particular person. And that's kind of like the lens they're looking at it. And that's why, people are kind of on Quad's side. They're not saying, okay, yes, she is being ganged up on him, but also, and she may need to be taking responsibility for something. Everything is always this or that. It could be yes and. That's what my therapist always tells me. Let's be more complex in our thoughts, okay? So Quad can take some responsibility, and the girls could have maybe found a way to better support her and say, hey, this is 4 of us all ganging. You're wrong, you're wrong. Most people in that situation are going to be defensive. It's going to take a very secure person in that situation to be able to receive and accept responsibility when you have a group of people all telling you you're wrong. So maybe it could have been done differently, and maybe it could have been more of a one-on-one to be at a table with everyone telling you you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you need to apologize, you need to apologize. I think the natural thing for most people is to defend themselves. So I can kind of see that side of it as well. As you can see, I hold different points of view from time to time, but like it could be yes and.
And I get that, but on the flip side of that, why didn't she do one-on-ones instead of inviting everybody to a mortuary and hopping out of a casket as everybody sitting down and you standing up over everybody going in?
Because it's dramatic. It's for TV.
Yes, it's very dramatic. And so therefore, my thing is,
she could have done one-on-ones with everyone.
Treat people the way that you want to be treated, right? And if you're able to give it, you should be able to receive it as well. And nobody was bashing on her. Everybody was sitting down at a table trying to have an intimate, uncomfortable yet comfortable conversation with someone who has caused issue with each individual. And so I don't see anything wrong with that if it's not aggressive. You know what I mean? If it doesn't look like, because to me it didn't look like a gang up. It wasn't everybody just coming at her at one time. Each person was speaking to her and articulating their experience of what they have, the experience of her in that relationship. And I didn't have a problem with that. I'm all for, hey, if I've done this, and this to all of these people, and now we're in the same room and everybody wants to have a conversation, let's have the conversation. Because I want to understand the part that I played and want to be able to acknowledge the part that I played. And at this age, apologize for if that's how I made you feel. Because maybe I was angry, maybe I was this, and it's just never my intention to hurt you. And in the moment of arguing, in a heated moment in general, there may be some toxic, things said. I may have went to hell and did some things, but that's not what I think about you. That's not the way that I want to love you in relationship with you. And it would have been great, once again, to see some redemption from Quad, to see her own these things and not just be like, well, you did this to me. Like, ma'am, you told us what they did to you the episode before. I want you to hold yourself accountable to people that, again, I'm going to always say, if I don't care about you, I'm not going to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I think they genuinely want to try to have a friendship with her, but I'm not sure if, I know Quiet, it seems like she's genuine, but also it seems like maybe she just wants to continue to film and be on the show. So she's just trying to have these conversations just so she can be on the show. She's not really following up with the ladies. And so I think that's their issue. She's like, you're just an opportunist.
But I feel like if that's the case, just be like, hey guys, in the beginning we were friends, but now we're coworkers.
Yeah.
I show up to work and I leave. I have my friends outside of this.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Quad, in the beginning it was a friendship thing, but then Quad became more of an Atlanta socialite and got these celebrity friends. Mm-hmm. And so now you're in this circle of celebrity friends. You don't really have to have these friendships with these other people.
I don't need these girls, but I need this Married to Medicine check.
So I'm going to show up to film. But it's hard to show up to film if nobody wants to film with you.
Yeah.
So therefore, you still want to have some type of relationship, right?
Yeah.
And you just can't go in and dog folks' husbands and families. And yeah, I'm not saying nobody on that show has been perfect. I feel like if anybody has said some of the worst, nastiest things, it would be Dr. Heavenly. And still, people still root for Dr. Heavenly and respect her and hold her to a certain standard. And I grew up, feeling like, for me, I've never been a fan of the bully, just in general, because when you've experienced those things, it's just kind of like, I'm not a fan, but I'm also not going to say that I can't then become a friend of the bully. I feel like you can, because you give them space to grow and to evolve and become somebody that is likable. I think with Quad, I've always liked Quad. It's just, she's changed, which I wouldn't expect for anybody not to. You want to grow and change, but I think within that change, it can make some people arrogant. It can get to your head and you feel like you are the show. I am Married to Medicine, and we've seen this with Nene. I am Real Housewives of Atlanta, and all these seasons later, she ain't on there, and the show is still going on because there's a formula. You cannot have a show run based just off of one person. It takes a team for this show to be successful. Whether the audience likes it or not, it's going to be successful one way or another, with or without that person. So I think that you work better together than apart. But if you got this big head thinking that, hey, without this, the show's gonna be boring, blah, 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 blah. The show's still going on and we're still watching.
Yeah, I agree.
We're just still watching. And moving on from that, let's go to like Carlos King and his comment about Dr. Simone.
Oh, what did he say? Because I didn't know this.
Pretty much, okay, so when we watched Watch What Happens, Dr. Simone was on there with Robin, and Andy asked her about some things about Quad and some things, whatever the case may be. And all she said was Quad appearing and talking with a blogger. Mm-hmm. So that blogger is Carlos King.
Okay.
Who, clearly you're a blogger because you have a YouTube channel and you talk about these shows, you talk about individual people, you go in. She said nothing shady. She didn't say anything negative. He then responds to it on social media.
She didn't say caller. She said a blogger.
She said a blogger.
Yes,
She didn't even say him, but that's who Quad did have the interview with. But she didn't name him. She just said a blogger, and she kept it moving. He then said, "Oh, he's not offended," just to turn around and be very offended and do a whole segment on his YouTube channel talking bad about Dr. Simone, about she's boring and nobody watches the show because of her, and she's this, just kind of tearing her down, tearing her apart.
I gotta lean back on that one. The negativity. It just seems like a negative.
It's interesting because, for one, you are a producer of shows. That's number one. You have some shows out right now, and that don't even stand close to where Married to Medicine is. But your shows are still watchable and likable. I think the problem is you are a producer, you are a blogger, you have a YouTube channel, you're so invested in talking negative and are doing all these other things that, again, your antics can diminish this great work that you're doing. And not only that, you're a black man. So you're a black man that has this opportunity that a lot of people would love to have, and you get to, bring forth other people and supposedly pull them up and not tear them down. And for you to then go on your platform and to bash someone who didn't even say anything negative about you, it kind of makes people side-eye who you are and what your motive is. And for you to say how unbothered you are, but then devote talking mad trash about her because you were bothered by her calling you a blogger, when that's exactly what you're doing. So I don't understand why you're so offended and what the problem is, sir. Like, I for the life of me, I couldn't understand why you were so heated and upset and bothered.
And I'm bothered. And this is a black woman, and we need to be lifting up a black woman. Black woman who's accomplished a lot, and she is interesting on the show. I think she adds some levity to the show. Honestly, I just love to see Dr. Simone laugh. I think she has good perspectives on things. She's a good friend to the girls on the show. So she adds a lot of, and then just see her family dynamic with her kids, how much she supports her two sons. It's a lot of things that she does add to the show. But just to go and talk negatively about someone that didn't talk negatively about you, it raises an eyebrow.
It raises a huge eyebrow.
Yeah, sir.
And I think it's easy to call somebody boring when they're not being theatrical. They're not being loud. They're not trying to be the center of attention. They're not trying to be all super grand. They're not showing up doing the most. But what they're doing is being authentic to who they've been since season 1. And giving us exactly who they are in their family dynamic and within their friendships. If that's boring, then I guess everybody is boring, right? Because not everybody wants to show up and just be over the top extra in their daily lives. And me and Ryan being people who have actually met both of these women, we've been in the company of both of these women and have some type of relationship, can say that neither one of them are boring people in general.
No,
this is very clear. Like, neither one of them are boring.
They're not boring. They're very interesting people.
Good energy people.
Yes.
And just good people overall. And I think sometimes it's tough to separate the two, reality from outside of, how do they operate outside of the television world, or whatever the case may be. And we got to say that Dr. Simone shows up the same way, and there's nothing about her that's boring. And so it was just interesting for him to make that comment when he has such a huge platform and the things that he does, because not everybody on your show is likable, right? Like, not everybody on your shows are likable. I think it takes a formula of different people to make a show work. You can't have everybody just show up and be grand and do the most, because then it's just going to be an overwhelming show of people.
Yeah, it needs to be a balance.
If you want a circus, go to the fair.
Yeah.
If you want a fair, go to the circus.
Speaking of that, where does that stem from?
Right. That stems from Potomac. So we're going to segue.
How does that stem from Potomac?
So basically, Dr. Well, not Dr. G, because he ain't no doctor.
Yeah,
But he was talking to his wife, Mia, and they were having a conversation And she just said something about it not being fair, and he said, "If you want fair, go to the circus." That was crazy.
Yeah.
But going and moving on to Potomac. Potomac has been very interesting the last few seasons, especially the last 2 seasons, and we've gone back and forth about our stance on stuff when it comes to Candiace and Robin and Giselle. And I'm a huge fan of Candiace. I love Candiace for a lot of reasons. And I can't say that I'm not a fan of Robin, but I am indifferent right now. So yeah, we've had this conversation about last season and how, Giselle planted this seed about Chris, which is Candiace's husband, and the way that Giselle and Candiace showed up with that and everybody else throughout the season, that seed that was planted, and then how Robin played into that. And then when the season wrapped, Robin then goes behind what do you want to call it, a paywall,
Yeah.
and expresses that her husband, Juan, had been doing some very interesting, suspicious behavior, questionable things. And instead of her airing this on the season and showing us this is her reality, she waited until after the show wrapped.
Like I said before, she didn't wait. She was forced. Someone put this information out there, and she talked about it then because the information was out there. Like I've always said, none of these women show their full, complete lives. No one's gonna go in and say, "Hey," if they're not in a space yet and they're still trying to make their marriage work. "Hey, my husband cheated." A lot of people are not gonna probably do that. Now, if the information comes out, they're gonna address it on the show. It happens the information came out after the show, so that's why she talked about it then. So I'm not that critical of her that she did not go in and say, "Hey, my husband got caught at a hotel with this woman from Canada." So that's not, I don't have an issue with that. And I feel like Candiace's issue with that, I don't think she should either, because Robin supported Chris on the show and was able to say that she did not think that Chris was trying to do anything with Giselle. And so she was supportive on the show in front of everybody. So I'm not sure why Candiace is upset with her just because she withheld this information about her husband. I don't get it.
I think that Candiace felt like her husband was used.
Not by her.
Not by her, but her husband was used to cover up Robin's reality of what was going on with her. I feel like that's how Candiace felt. Now, Is that the reality of the situation? We don't know.
Do you feel that way? That Robin told Giselle to plant the seed?
No,
Okay.
not that she told her to plant the seed. So what I'm saying
So
is Giselle planted the seed, right?
Right.
Robin and Giselle are best friends.
Yep.
So Giselle knows what has been transpiring in Robin's life.
Mm-hmm.
It was never brought up on camera.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to manipulate a situation, we're going to focus on what happened to me after the reunion and how I felt uncomfortable with Candiace's husband. Let's put this on camera, and this is going to be the focus. So it'll overshadow any and everything else. This is what I'm thinking that Candiace feels, right?
Okay.
It may not even be the reality of what happened.
That's what she feels.
But this is what she feels.
That's what she feels.
And so my husband was used as a scapegoat of to cover up whatever Robin was dealing with Juan, right? So Candiace is just feeling like, hey, you knew this was going on in your life. 1, 2, you knew that your friend was going hard on the situation when it came to my husband and saying all these things about him all season. And then 3, you're getting paid so much more than I am to showcase your life, and instead you decide to go behind a paywall and do it instead of on our show where we're supposed to have our reality played out.
Let's say if Chris probably had done the same thing, I don't think Candiace would be on there volunteering that information. Do you think so?
I think so. Let me tell you why. We've seen Candiace and Chris go at each other, right? Some very uncomfortable conversations, curse each other out, like just some things have transpired, even when it comes to him and his baby mama and those kids. And we've seen her deal with some difficult things on this show, even with the Monique situation and some other things. So I don't think that she would be afraid to display if her husband had stepped out on her.
So she would
just
put
like
that
she
out
talked
there.
about it. Remember, she even had to talk about some things that had transpired when it was brought to her attention from some of the other girls.
So it was brought to her attention. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about things people are volunteering. A lot of these girls talk about things when it's brought to their attention, but volunteering information is a different thing. So we were asking,
I think if you're actively going through it while the cameras are rolling, you have no choice, right? Because it's going to show up. It would be tough to hide, this is what I'm actively going through with my significant other.
I think a lot of women don't dive into their personal relationships on these shows. We see Dr. Heavenly on Married to Medicine. She doesn't really get into that. Some people just choose not to show that aspect of it. And I think with the other ladies, it's either come out from somebody else, from a third party, and talked about it, or they were ready to move on and they decided to talk about it because they were ready to move on. But when a lot of times couples are actively working on it, sometimes they'll show it, but I'm just not confident 100% she would convey that information if she was trying to stay in a relationship with her husband. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I guess we don't know.
We don't know.
But what I will say is, I get where she's coming from in her stance towards Robin. I wouldn't say her stance is 100% right? I wouldn't say that. And I would hope that she would be willing to listen, to understand, and not just to respond. Because if this is somebody that you still want to be friends with, yes, she said some things on social media. She's called Robin a fraud. She said some other things because this is how she felt based off of what has happened.
And a lot of times, just because you feel some way doesn't mean that's actually what happened.
True.
It's not facts.
That's true.
You've interpreted it this way, so you feel this way. So your feelings does not make it a fact.
And again, some of this stuff is coming out of hurt and anger. It's not out of the way that you really feel about somebody, but this is just how you're choosing to show up in this moment toward them, right? So I would say that we witnessed Robin advocate on Candiace's behalf and Chris's behalf last season, and stand in the middle of that whole situation. So her going so hard on her, some people would say, is because she does not have a relationship with Giselle, is not going to talk to Giselle. So maybe Robin is getting what she wants to give to Giselle a little bit, or she really just feels this way because she feels like her friend wasn't being a good friend to her during this moment. The friend that she wanted her to be during this moment, showing up the way that she wanted her to show up. I don't know, it's just very interesting. That's what I'm saying. I don't feel like she's wrong in the way that she feels, but I don't feel like she's completely right in the way that she feels either.
Yeah. That's nuance.
So I guess we'll see how that plays out on the next episode.
But you see this woman, you call her your friend, and she's going through obviously some real stuff with her husband. It would seem to me that you can get outside of yourself and not focus on me, and just try to be a good friend. But I think the issue is a lot of times people are focused on themselves and their feelings, when sometimes it takes you opportunities to step back. What is this person really? This must be really difficult to be going through. Like, I went through this and it wasn't even true, but she's going through this and there's some truth to it. Like,
I think we've seen her have that moment in the car. We've seen her step outside of herself and become emotional because her friend was very emotional. And so that also, like I told people, that just shows that she still cares, even though she's hurting and she's angry, she still cares about her. She cares about her feelings because this is why she became emotional. She didn't want to see her be emotional as well. So the love is still there, right?
There was a huge opportunity to say, hey, we're not going to focus on me and what I went through, how I felt. I'm moving forward. How are you feeling? Like, that you're dealing with all of this stuff. I know I went through this and it wasn't true. And yes, I would like you to support me better, but I care about you. I love you. Let's just make this work.
How can I show up for you?
How can I show up for you in this moment? And she hasn't done that. The focus has been still on her and her situation, which happened a while ago, which we all see that it probably does, the situation seemed suspect, but there was like nothing major about it, right? I can understand how Giselle might have felt uncomfortable in that situation. And I think it just got blown out of proportion. One, because of the producers, they wanted to make it a storyline. But I think if she just get outside of herself and really focus on her friends, she would feel a lot better in general about the whole situation. Because I think she has some feelings about how she's responded to. I can tell. I think she knows she probably hasn't been the best friend as well, and that's kind of hurting her a little bit as well.
And I love
She's good-hearted.
Candiace.
I think she's kind and good-hearted.
Yes, absolutely. I think she is. I love Candiace because I get that she is kind and good-hearted. I get that. I mean, not only is she smart and she's witty and she's very talented, but I think she's just a good person overall. I think her feelings are genuinely hurt, and because her feelings are hurt, she doesn't know how to like express the way that she's truly feeling, and so some of that is coming out in a very frustrating, angry way. But on top of that, I love this girl. I care about this girl too. How can I separate what I truly feel from what really happened? You know what I mean? How can I look at it through her lens? And I think that she takes some time to just, okay, I know that I'm feeling this way, but I want to save my relationship. She also has to do so without somehow putting Giselle within the mix too. You have to be able to separate. In order to save that relationship, you have to completely separate the way that you feel about Giselle and what she did.
Because I think Candiace's issue, and you've said this before, is that she's questioning Robin being friends with a person like Giselle, someone that would do something like this to her. And so I think that is what she's questioning. I think she's still somewhat on the fence about whether she wants to be friends with. She's conflicted. I feel like we see a conflicted
And
Candiace.
sometimes it can be tough because we've always said birds of a feather, right? Birds of a feather. So sometimes it's tough to separate the villain from the hero or whatever the case may be. And if Giselle is a villain, why is this person your friend? Why are you so close to this person? It makes me feel uncomfortable. Now, is there a way to do that? Because like you said, I get how that can be difficult and tough, because where does your loyalty lie? How are you able to still be loyal to me in this friendship when you're dealing with this other person who has trashed and bashed me in my situation? How are we able to?
And I think differently about the Giselle thing. I know she said it on camera, but like she didn't say Chris. She said Chris made her feel uncomfortable, and she probably did feel uncomfortable. I don't think it was that egregious. I think it got carried. It just got carried on too much and got blown out of proportion.
But then even the more that she talked about it to other people, she started to say even more negatives. Oh, he's a sneaky link, or he's this, or he's that. It wasn't just he made me feel uncomfortable. It was now you're sitting down with Robin and saying this. Now you're sitting down with Mia and you're adding on more stuff. So it wasn't just, oh, he made me feel uncomfortable. You said enough to make it seem like he's a person that's capable of sexual assault.
Well, I think it was more of, I think Ashley,
which is very derogatory and
that's
hurtful.
Very hurtful.
To him, it can it's damaging in general. Those accusations can be very damaging, and so we have to understand that point too. But
I think people were talking, and she should have been more choosy with her words. And I could see how Candiace and Chris definitely were offended by the things, especially when you talk about the sneaky link part. That's insinuating.
Especially if you are willing to sacrifice a relationship. Yeah, her and Chris, he even said like, I looked at her as like a sister.
Yeah,
you sacrifice that relationship for a storyline.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Giselle is her one true friend is Robin, and then everybody else co-workers, and she's just playing whatever needs to be said. She's gonna say it, and she's treating it like a business. And I think if Candiace probably treated it that way, she probably wouldn't get so emotionally involved. But she's really vested in her friendships on this show, and Giselle is somewhat removed. She's just unfazed by a lot of things.
And I just want people to we can give both grace, Robin and Candiace,
and Giselle. Can we give Giselle grace?
We can give both grace, Robin and Candiace.
All three? You can't give Giselle any grace?
It's tough for me to give Giselle grace because, nah. I can give Robin and Candiace some grace, and I'm just continue to advocate on behalf of Candiace because I love Candiace. Allow yourself to receive what Robin has to say. Subtract Giselle completely from the equation, and open up your heart to the relationship that you really want to have. You know, I know it could be emotional and you're feeling heavy and, you know, things have been said even this season from Robin, but if this is somebody that you truly care about, you're going to have to let be what has been be and give grace some type of way and find a middle ground to want to move forward, because it wasn't that bad. And again, this stuff came out after the camera stopped, and I still get why you felt the way that you felt, but maybe that's just not how it lined up. The timeline didn't go that way. And unfortunately, it went the way that it did. And so the focus was your husband and your marriage and your life. But if this is your big sister and this is your friend, you're going to have to find a way to have some forgiveness there, understand there, and just move forward. Because we want to see you guys move forward. We want to see this relationship be redeemed. I don't think that this should be the end all to be all just because you called her a fraud on social media or because she chose to talk about her situation behind a paywall.
And I understand housewives and people on reality TV being frustrated, but guess what? You also signed up for this life. You also signed up to show, your relationship on TV, and you have other people, your coworkers involved in your relationship. So I understand you fighting for your husband and fighting for what is right, of course, but also you have a choice. If you don't want things to come out about your relationship, if you don't want people to talk about it, then you don't have to actually be on the show. So that's another perspective I have. So
where else you gonna go when you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for filming 3 months out of a year?
Yeah, if it's that serious and you're that protective and it means that much to you, then but you would like to have both. You would like to be on it again. It doesn't have to be this or that. You'd like to be on the show, and you'd like for people to speak honestly about your husband. But being a part of this show, there's things like this that may happen just because it's interesting, just because it's a storyline.
Yeah. So I will say that so far we've been getting some really great TV from Salt Lake City, Potomac, and Married to Medicine. And there's just a formula that works as far as it takes everybody to make these shows run. Mm-hmm. Would I like to see a mix up a little bit with Potomac? I would, because I do feel like there's still this school days aspect of the wannabes and the jigaboos, which is the wannabes, the light-skinned girls, and the jigaboos, the dark-skinned girls. I still see a color line that has been drawn in the middle of the sand, creating a divide. Because even based off of this last episode that aired, you had all the light-skinned girls sitting at one side of the table and all the dark-skinned girls sitting at the other side of the table. And you have all light-skinned girls who actually have a relationship, and then the dark-skinned girls that have a relationship somewhat. But there's nobody, there's no unity. Yeah, you're all black women, but there's such a divide. And this is why the colorism, conversation continues, because we continue to see it play out on this show. And that's tough to watch. And the goalpost, as Candiace has said, it continues to move. It continues to move, and Monique has said that before too. It's as if certain people are held to certain standards, but these other people who are darker skinned aren't held to them same standards on this show. It's really interesting to see the dynamics of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, who's aggressive and who's not aggressive, who's this and who's that, based off of their complexion, their tone. That's an aspect of the show that I would like to see shaken up. I want to see something different. Yeah. I feel like the conversation wasn't a great conversation when they had it that year on the reunion, because you didn't have the right person in that seat navigating that conversation of what colorism truly is. And, when Giselle said what she said about why she wouldn't be friends with Candiace because of what she said at the reunion. What did
Candiace say? Because Candiace, in terms of the conversation, Candiace has played into that. And what did she say at the reunion?
I mean, she just pretty much said because of your privileged half white self. I mean, she considers herself black. It was a bit offensive. So we can't be hypocritical in this situation. You can't be saying that, calling me angry because I'm dark skinned, but then you're saying offensive things to the other side, that you consider the other side, because they're lighter skinned. So it goes both ways. But I can also understand why she said what she said, because there's so much believability. It's more believable because
I don't even know the term she said. It wasn't just halfway. It was something else. It was a little bit more.
I mean, it was.
I forget what she said, but
it was harsh. It was aggressive, but she was also in the heat of the moment. She was upset, and I think that's also been what she's seen played out over the few years as well, being on this show.
Don't be hypocritical. Be careful with your words.
True. I agree. I'm just saying in general, there's still some it's more heavy.
It's more heavy, but I think Karen's been doing a good job.
Karen's the only one that has a balance.
That has a balance to combat this.
Yeah, she's the balance on the show, and she's needed. But I would like to see
come together more,
something different, because I don't know, it's just too much one side and the other side. That's just how I personally feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's our take so far on reality TV, on these shows, and yeah, we're gonna continue to dish out some of these videos and give our perspective on some things and just have fun with y'all just in general. And if there's anything y'all want us to talk about, hit us up in the comments and let us know. And we thank y'all for watching the R&D show.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Enjoy your day. You know what I'm talking about? Peace.